What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a, discussion video about Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous and how it looks a couple months before launch. So as most people know, the game will be launching on September 2nd. It's been in a beta phase since about February, and truth be told, most of the content I want to make for the game at this point is going to have to wait until release. So I hadn't talked about it in a while, and I figured I'd just kind of sum up where I think the game is at. Now, just broad strokes, I think this will be a significantly better game than Kingmaker, frankly, as Owlcat really seemed to be focused on improving basically every pain point from Kingmaker. So unless you just really like Kingmaker's story, I think Wrath of the Righteous will be pretty much a straight upgrade. So on that front, they've taken great pains to improve basically everything. They've added more classes, more archetypes, improved the UI pretty much across the board. They've replaced the kingdom management system with the corruption system primarily in terms of what sends you back to your capital to handle like events and stuff, not necessarily like a quality thing. They've of course added in the mythic path system, which will be integral to the actual story of Wrath of the Righteous. And they've done things like even revamp the tutorial section of the game, so to speak. So covering those on a more like individual basis, there are some weak points and stuff. I will talk about those as well, but just kind of kicking this off here. The tutorial section is better than Kingmaker for a variety of reasons. It gives better explanations for how a lot of the Pathfinder systems work, as opposed to the fairly bare-bones explanation that you get in Kingmaker. Also, I think they hit a pretty decent spot overall for the length of the prologue, and there's a lot of really cool events going on with the Demon Lord, of course, the Scari, which you meet right at the beginning of the game, so it kind of kicks it off in a very cinematic sort of way that kind of gets you engaged immediately. And the first act of the game, and keep in mind in beta you can only access about half of the total game, give or take, but the first act of the game is really strong. I think people are going to like that a lot. I personally find the companions of Wrath of the Righteous much more interesting. We're not going to go over those in any great depth here, but I will say Kingmakers, besides one or two, I wasn't all that interested in, whereas I like most of the ones in Wrath of the Righteous on some level, and those companions can even become mythic companions, which will be able to partake in some of the mythic powers that your main character will get. They just won't get like the full-blown mythic path, so they'll even feel a little stronger. And speaking of mythic paths, I think Mythic Path is probably the best system of the game so far, because in addition to being a unique power progression system, it also drastically changes the story based on which Mythic Path you actually pick. Now, there are a couple that I can't access yet, but even with what's available, it changes the story quite a bit. And sure, like most games, you kind of wind up in the same place, but for different reasons when it comes to that kind of choice and consequence, but it does make for a genuinely different experience, I've found. So in all those ways, I think Wrath of the Righteous is going to be very good. However, there are still some weak points that I am a little concerned about myself. Now, namely the Crusade system. And it's not that it doesn't feel good to play, it's just that it feels unpolished at the moment. Now, that said, the jump from Beta Phase 1 to Beta Phase 2 in terms of the Crusade system was a pretty big leap in terms of quality. So I'm hoping on release they've updated that some more and added some polish, because factually you can tell there's some things missing from it as you play right now. But it is a point of concern just because it still feels a little wonky. Moreover, there's the crafting system. In its current state, it's pretty underwhelming. You have to, put forth feats and stuff, and then most of the stuff you can craft is just mediocre, and I don't see that it's going to be super worthwhile for most people. Like, it's nice that it's an option, but in its current form, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be that good for you. Moreover, and this is kind of something I'm torn about because I actually do enjoy all of the over-the-top like class choices and stuff for Pathfinder in general. However, there does come a point where it's like some of this stuff feels a little redundant, and I'm curious how people are going to interact with all of the classes and stuff come launch time. Because sure, the people like me that are dedicated to it and have gone over every single class aren't going to be fazed by it much. But I'm very curious as to what a new player is going to do when they see all those classes and all those archetypes, if they're not just going to feel overwhelmed. So that's something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on come launch time, but factually, there's a lot. But to kind of just sum this up and not ramble on for too long about the same old stuff, coming up on the launch of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, overall, I think it's shaping up to be a very promising game. However, there are things that I am watching tentatively that truthfully I don't think there's anything Alcat could do about besides, see what happens ultimately. When it comes to things like the classes, because, people might enjoy that, they might hate it, could go either way. But when you see all of these branching paths and stuff that the mythic paths can take, and I think people are really going to be excited by those, it shapes up to be a very ambitious game, and I'm very curious to see how well this game is going to be received, personally. So just kind of something I'm keeping an eye on. But there you go, guys. Just kind of my thoughts on where Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is 2 months ahead of the launch. So with that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.